Honor and privilege to be here this morning in such an esteemed audience. Before I talk about mapping the journey, Siemens journey, is sort of a lofty title, but indeed we do have grand goals in terms of carbon-free Siemens. But maybe a bit of a perspective, a couple of perspectives with regards to COP23. Firstly, it's held in Germany in Bonn, so one of the questions that was asked was what was our perspective? Siemens as a company participating in Bonn, what was the key takeaway? And I had a phone call with our sustainability chief, who was our representative there. And basically she gave me 3 points. One was it's mainstream, she said. So what does she mean? She said many COPs ago, you only see sustainability people. She says today she saw a lot of business people. So I guess that's a good news. Climate change is becoming mainstream. The second thing, I guess, as a company living through the great energy transition in Germany, Energiewende, you probably have heard the lofty goals, which is something like 80%, like the UK. 80% renewables, in this case by 2050, reduction of 90% carbon emissions, and so on and so forth. Indeed, Germany today has about 30% renewables. Prashant would be happy with that. And to reach 80% in 2050, there's a lot of issues, as Jeannie has said, how do you put it fast enough? One of the issues is that when you reach a certain level of renewables, you get issues with grid stability. So Germans are living with that grid stability, instability. Fortunately, there are many technologies helping. But as a company, we also have to live through that transition. You heard about the issues with turbine generators. So over the last 3 years, only one gas turbine was bought in Germany. You'll be surprised. And although renewables is increasing, carbon emissions is not increasing because there's an unintended side effect. Coal generation became cheaper. So that is, I think it is a good goal, make the planet great again, but I think there's a lot of learnings we need to do. And I think Germany has been living through that. The third thing is technology. There's a lot of technologies available, continue to be developed. But there were a few buzzwords that came up. We have a paper on the internet about energy transition. One of that is sector coupling, right? So how do we electrify transportation, couple the sector? How do we electrify heating, which is a big topic? So the horizontal expansion of electricity application, so sector coupling, will be a word that we will hear more and more. The other one is maybe a bit related to CCS, but not so. This is what we call generation to X, power to X. So when you have an excess of renewable energies, you can store in batteries, as Elon Musk will tell you, but to a certain extent, you need to convert that to something else. In the old days, you pump it into a hydro station, and I think in Guangzhou they are doing that. Excess power goes to somewhere higher, and then you sort of, but that is not enough. So a lot of development is going in power to X. So power to conversion of hydrogen is a growing area because hydrogen is a fuel. So if I turn my excess electricity into hydrogen, it's a clean fuel. A lot of work going on in there. So these are the trends that we will see on top of the particular technologies that are there. Obviously, with technologies, it's not the innovation, I think it's the adoption, right? The diffusion. Whether people use it, that's important. So with that, maybe I walk you through our journey to a carbon-free future. I won't go through this. first slide. Everybody is quite clear about this, but I like to show this because this is a why. Why does Siemens want to have a carbon-free future? Because of what's happening. Make the planet great again. It's the right thing to do. Simple, right? Basically, low carbon is the right thing to do, because if we don't do it, our kids or our grandchildren will be hit with the effect. Somebody said we are living on borrowed time, right? We are borrowing the earth from our future generations. So that's the right thing to do. And to be honest, in Siemens, we see that as a good business case. That's the right thing to do. So how are we going to do it? First, that's our path to long-term CO2 neutrality. So for those who have followed this, Joe Kaiser, our CEO, who is quite a direct person, I think 1 month before COP21, he gave this press release and he gave an interview which is still in YouTube. This is what we're going to do. Simple, right? By 2030, we want to be carbon neutral. To be honest, out in Hong Kong, we were a bit caught by surprise. But as someone who has worked in Siemens for quite a long time, I have confidence that he has planned this quite well, although it looks quite sort of audacious, some would say. But I guess we do have a plan behind this. And the good news is we are making progress. The plan is very simple. First, we work on our properties, right? Building energy efficiencies. Many people say it's a low-hanging fruit. But we invested 100 million euro into our global properties. We do have a company called Siemens Real Estate, by the way, that manages all our properties, including factories. So, and it is a good business case because 20 million euro savings a year. So the payback is 5 years, which is not surprising, particularly in Germany with the high energy prices. In Hong Kong, I would tell you it's about 7 years. Still pretty good. If you look at the building, it's about 30 years. So this is, in a way, low-hanging fruit. You just have to spend the money. Good for the planet, good for the company. Second thing is energy. We look at how we got our energy. In Germany, it was quite easy. We look for renewable energies, and we have consciously switched energy supplies to renewable energy. The interesting thing was, and this was one of the board members told me was, you know, this is one thing we never look at. We take energy supply for granted. Oh, this is the operations guy. But when they look at how we bought energy, they were totally surprised. So the key takeaway was, for them, it was eye-opening how we bought energy and what energy we use. And the result was we became more competitive. Sorry, Jenny. We became more competitive when considering sources of energy, and particularly the shift towards green energy. The third thing is fleet, obviously. We have thousands of fleet. Obviously, providing of e-charger is easy, but we also extended it to employee vehicles. So we have policies, not in Hong Kong yet, but elsewhere in Europe, that if you want to get reimbursement, you need to meet a certain emission targets. So employees are encouraged to buy low emission vehicles, not EV, per se, before they can get reimbursed. Some would say it is tough, but you know, Europe is really leading with low emission vehicles. So it is not difficult to buy a low emission vehicle in Europe. So last but not least is about behavior and sustainability. So the good news is we have reduced 20% up to now. I think we are on track to reducing 50%. Let's see the 2030 whether we will get. I will have to say a lot of that will come from technologies that we are currently still developing, right? So it's always good to have a target. The next is helping our customers. Helping our customers go low carbon. So for those who have followed our our annual report, actually we declare this number every year. A few years ago, it was 300 million tons. So what is the environmental portfolio? Basically, these are products and solutions that we do. Energy efficiency, building energy efficiency, what Jeannie was saying, these electric trucks, gas turbines. Gas turbine versus steam turbines, gas turbines. So we add up all that. Today it is, I think we said about 40 to 50% of our portfolio can result in carbon reduction. And if you look at 2016, this is 2016, so all this portfolio help our customers, the planet, reduce by 521 million. So quite significant. Hong Kong is still about 45 million tons, if I'm not wrong. So, so that's about quite a bit. And 60% of Germany is about 800 million tons, so by the way. So all these technologies, wind power, trains, whatever, everything to do with electrification and efficient use of electrification. So we do it ourselves and we help our customers do that. So very simple. And I have to say, there is a strong business case for both, if you can see. It's a strong business case for both. So how do we do that? We call that the EAD. So the pathway is very simple. In a way, if you look at it, first you electrify, sector coupling. So we will continue to electrify more areas. Transportation, this is what Jeannie was talking about, this truck with the pantograph, and so on. Secondly, those we electrify, we automate. Why? Like BMS, if you automate, you get more efficient use of the electricity. And third, which is sort of a potential, digitalize, right? There's a lot of innovations in digitalizing that I have to say, we are just starting on this, but digitalization would further push the curve a bit, because if you only depend on EA, you would have a flattening. So how to pull the curve longer? We believe digitalization, intelligent grids, and so on will play a big part. Car sharing is a good example, big part in it. So EAD sounds simple, but this is what we, in Siemens, we look at every day. So then this is the last part. The third part of our strategy is to look at cities. So one, we do it ourselves. Secondly, we help our customers do it. Third, we concentrate and focus on cities. So this is from London, because our city's center of competence, I invite you to visit, in the Crystal, came up with this. And basically, that if you look at London, the EAD trend, so autonomous tube, which is driverless train. So EAD in action. Car sharing, right? If you look at a car, I mean, our generation, we still want to buy a car, but actually it sits in the garage for 90% of the time. And when we use it, there's only one person inside. So highly carbon inefficient. But car sharing is a potential. I know this. I have to say, in Singapore, they will launch a car sharing, electric car sharing service, which is quite amazing if you think about it. Blockchain, you think that's not relevant, but when we talk about energy trading, guess what? Blockchain comes into play. We have a scheme running in Brooklyn that uses blockchain for sharing of a neighborhood that shares solar power among themselves using blockchain. DES is a big thing, even happening in China. A lot of developments happening with distributed energy system. In the past, grid was highly centralized with long transmission. Now it is highly localized, because if you look at a DES system, if you add heat, it brings it up to 90% efficiency. So amazing. The present power generation, even if you look at a gas turbine, which is the most efficient, is about 62–63%. But if we use the waste heat from the gas turbine to generate steam, that brings it up to 90%. So A lot of developments going on in DES across the border. So it's not happening quite far away. And I guess in the interest of time, greenfields, e-bus, and so on. So a lot of technologies are available, but the issue is, I think, a couple of things. You know, technology is, first you start with invention, then you have innovation, but the most important thing is diffusion. So you can have the best technology, and if it's not used, then it just stays in the lab. And the last thing I would like to say is with technology, particularly with environmental technologies, is a little bit different. We have to be careful. With a personal technology, whether you use it or not, it's up to you. There's no impact. But with technologies like this, there is impact on the society. So the challenge is a lot more bigger. I think with that, maybe I end. But I have to say this, MindSphere basically is our OS for making all the technologies work in a city. But I guess the closing thing is maybe to reiterate, I think it's good. Climate change is the right thing to do. All of us should do that. I mean, but Maya have heard me say this before. We need to get the message outside this room, you know, so that's important. Secondly is we have to start with ourselves. Then we have help the people around us do it. And maybe there'll be a chance for the planet. Thank you.